Excel is intended to be used to calculate and analyze numerical information such as household budgets, company finances, inventory, and more. To do this, you need to understand formulas. In earlier lesson, we covered simple formulas that we have one mathematical operation such as 2 plus 2. In this lesson, we'll discuss complex formulas that use multiple mathematical operators and that use absolute and relative references. This lesson may take you back to high school math because in Excel, there are certain math rules that you have to follow for formulas to work. The order of mathematical operations is very important. If you enter a formula that contains several operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, Excel knows to work these operations in a specific order. First in the order is parentheses. Operations that are enclosed in parentheses are completed first. Next, we have exponents. Calculations that involve exponents, such as 2 to the second power, are completed next. I have a guess that most of the spreadsheets you work with will not use exponents, but this is part of basic mathematics. The next steps is in the order are multiplication and division. These two operations are considered to be equal or at the same level. This means if you have a formula with both a multiplication and division sign, Excel will read the formula from left to right and perform whichever operations come first. And finally, we have addition and subtraction. These two operations are considered equal like multiplication and division, so Excel will read the formula from left to right and perform whichever operation comes first. A mnemonic that can help you remember this is please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, PEMDAS. Now let's take a look at how the order of operations will affect your Excel formulas. Let's write a formula with two operations. As always, we'll start with an equal sign. Now Excel will follow the order of operations and will multiply two numbers and then add. So 3 times 2 equals 6 and 3 plus 6 equals 9. Yes, the answer is 9. Now what if I want Excel to add 3 plus 3 together before multiplying? Let's retype the formula and add parentheses around 3 plus 3. Following the order of operations, Excel will add the numbers in parentheses first. So we can have 3 plus 3 equals 6 and then multiply number times 2 to equal 12. Let's check. And we can see the Excel followed the order of operations. Before moving on, let's take a look at some formulas to make sure you really understand the order of operations, which Excel uses to calculate answers. You really do have to understand this so you can write formulas correctly. Let's look at the case number 1. We'll multiply 4 times 2 before performing the division operation because multiplication sign comes before the division sign. The answer is 2. What about this one? We'll divide 4 by 2 before performing multiplication operation because the division sign comes before the multiplication sign. The answer here is 8. Now let's add parentheses and see how that changes the problem. We'll need to perform operation in parentheses. It's 2 times 4 first and divide 4 by this result. The answer is 0.5. What about this one? Multiply 2 times 4 before performing the subtraction operation because multiplication sign is of a higher order than the subtraction sign. The answer is -4. Now that we have covered the most of our operations and written a few formulas, let's see how it works in the spreadsheet using cell references instead of numbers. A cell reference or cell address is the name of the cell based on its location. This cell is where column G and row 6 intersects. And that's why the address is G6. If you're ever unsure about the cell address, you can find it in the name box, which is to the left of the formula bar. Let's say we want to calculate how much I'm spending per bowl. Let's write a formula here in H6 and we'll just delete it when we're done. We'll insert an equal sign to get started. Now what do we need to calculate this? Since we only have one case each of the small and regular bowls, we'll just need to add the two bowls amount together to calculate how much we spent on bowls. To do this using cell references, we'll select G6 and type an addition sign and then select G7. To figure out how much we paid per bowl, we'll need to divide by total amounts of bowls we have. To calculate how many bowls we have, we'll need to add D6 and D7. Now, can you see a problem with this formula? We want to divide the total dollar amount we spent by the total number of bowls so that we can calculate how much we are spending per bowl. Does this formula do that for us? No, it really doesn't. You see, with the way the formula is currently written, Excel will divide G7 by D6 since division is completed before addition. This will give us some big number and that clearly doesn't indicate how much we are paying per bowl. Let's add some parentheses to the formula so that Excel knows to perform addition operation before it divides. And now you can see that we are paying about 13 cents per bowl. If you want to show fewer decimal place, you can just click decrease the decimal place command on the Home tab. I think we have covered complex formulas using the order of operations pretty well. So let's talk about two types of cell references, relative and absolute references. The formula in this cell takes the number in F2 and multiplies it with the number in C2. But what the Excel program sees when it reads this formula is that it just multiplies the value that appears in one cell to the left by the value that appears in 4 cells from where the formula appears. This is called a relative cell reference. When you copy a formula containing relative references to another cell, the relative references automatically change. So when I drag this formula down and fill other cells with it, you won't see F2 times C2. you will see the new relative references. So here in G3, the formula reads the value in one cell to the left times the value that appears in 4 cells to the left, or F3 times C3. And you can see the same thing in these other cells. The other type of references is called an absolute cell reference. If the formula is copied to a different location, the absolute reference remains the same. An absolute reference is designated in the formula by the addition of a dollar sign. It can precede the column reference or the row reference or both. In this example, the column and the row do not change when copied. In this example, the row does not change when copied, and in this example, the column does not change when copied. See how this might work in a spreadsheet. Over here in H2, let's write a formula that multiplies the inventory number to C2, which is the unit cost. If we want to create an absolute reference, we'll just add the dollar sign before the C and before 2. And we can see that the amount in G2 and H2 is the same, even though the H2 uses an absolute reference. So when this formula is dragged over to 3 additional cells, I can see that the numbers won't match up with what appears in G3, 4, and 5. This formula takes the number in F3 and multiplies with number in C2. The C2 will stay constant because of the dollar sign, which makes it an absolute reference. This spreadsheet doesn't need these formulas, so let's just delete them. As you can see, the order of operations and relative and absolute references are important to understand if you plan on using formulas in your spreadsheet. Spend some time writing formulas and see how they work.